missionary report to the High Council. And so he's just going to take a few minutes, and he's going to talk about his mission and his experiences there, share a little bit about how the church is there, whether it's strong, how it's growing, what your experiences were, and then conclude with bearing us your testimony of Jesus Christ. And I'm assuming your native language was English. So, or not native, the language of your mission was English. So go ahead and bear your testimony at the end. But with that, we'll welcome you home, Elder Peck, and turn it over to you.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so like he said, I served in Kenya in the Kenya Nairobi Mission. It's the only mission in Kenya. But it was great. I had a great experience. I was only actually in the field for 2 months before all this started to happen. But I ended up having 5 baptisms, which is impressive even there. So me and my companion really worked hard. I never even finished training, so that was fun. But the church there in Kenya, there is 2 stakes. Or in Nairobi.
Tell me about, before we go off baptisms, tell us a little bit about the individuals that you taught who were converted. I think that's pretty cool that you had 5 baptisms in a place like Kenya in 2 months. So I'd like to hear a little bit about them.
Okay.
If you indulge me.
Okay, sounds good. So my first baptism, he actually chose me to baptize him even before I got into the mission field. So he, my companion or my trainer, he was telling him how he'll be training and how he'll have a new missionary as his companion, and how it would be cool if he would let me baptize him on my first week. And he accepted, and he wanted me to baptize him. So I got there on a Wednesday, and that Sunday I baptized him. So within a week I already had 1. But that one kind of didn't count, but I counted it. So and then my second baptism, it was really the most powerful guy I ever met on my mission. His name was Ainea, spelled Ainea. It was kind of weird how you said it and how you spelled it. It was completely different. But he was just a powerful guy. He was 30, and he was a referral actually, and he wanted to know. He had a lot of questions that his religion couldn't answer, and so he was talking to his friend at work who was a member, and she's like, well, see, we have all those answers, and we would love to share them with you if you would want to meet with the missionaries. And so she set him up with us, and we taught the first lesson, and he just clicked. He loved it. It was amazing to see that, and he was taking all these facts in and wasn't even questioning on them. He was expounding what he knew and adding it to what we were teaching him, and then they were just making sense in his head. It was kind of cool just how he understood everything. In every single lesson, he understood every single lesson. And I mean, from the time we got the referral to the time we baptized him was less than a month. And he just loved the gospel, and he was very strong. And before we even left, he promised me that our hard work as missionaries wouldn't go in vain, that he loved the gospel and he was going to stay active for the rest of his life because that's how much he loved it, and he knew that it was true. And that was really cool, really strengthened my testimony watching his grow. And then the third sister, she was a sister, she only spoke Kiswahili and I could only read Kiswahili. So what me and my companion had to do was we would take turns reading the Kiswahili and then also be reading the English pamphlet at the same time. And so we wouldn't understand what we were talking in Kiswahili, but she would, and then we would just expound a little bit more in English because she kind of understood English but not very well. So we kind of switched off with that, and she ended up understanding everything, and we got her baptized. It took about 2.5 months for the whole, they were teaching her before I got there, and then we barely got her baptized 2 Sundays before this whole Corona thing started and stopped all church. And then my last 2 baptisms were on the same day. they were on the same day I was told that I'm going to go home. So we weren't having church at the time because of Corona, but we got permission from our branch leader to have a baptism on a Saturday if we had enough people of the congregation there, and then they would get confirmed the next day on Sunday at a member's home where they were serving the sacrament. So we did that. We had 2 more baptisms. One of his name was a young guy. He was 14 years old, I think, something like that. His name was Abednego. We met him in seminary. So me and my companion, we actually taught seminary there because they didn't have a seminary teacher, and they started a seminary class without a teacher. So they asked us if we would, teach it. So we agreed, and it ended up being very fruitful. We had 1 baptism because of it, and then we had another young girl on date before, and we never got her baptized before we had to leave Kenya. But his name was Abednego, and then another sister that was baptized the same day as Abednego. Her name was Sarah. Sarah was kind of crazy. I guess she was kind of a referral, but I don't know. It was weird. So one day we were at church and she just showed up, and we were like, "Oh, like, why'd you come?" Like we were talking to her, trying to get her reason for coming, because she wasn't a member. She'd never been to church, and she's like, "Oh, my friend told me about this church, so I figured I would come." So we're like, "Oh, that's cool. Her friend's a member, just sent us a referral." And we started teaching her that day. We taught her the first lesson, and she loved it. By the second lesson, we had her on date. She knew it was true, which was really cool. And we just continued to teach her. And on the last lesson, we talked to her about her friend, and turns out her friend wasn't even a member, never even has attended the church, but just heard that it was a good church. And so she told her about it, and she ended up coming, and now she's a member. And yeah, she was also very powerful in her testimony as well. But yeah, those were the 5 baptisms I had in just that short time. It seems like it took forever, but I guess it was only 2 months.
That's really neat. I really enjoyed, not just the success stories you changed, but your comment where you said that they did not have a seminary teacher, but they started a seminary. I'd be interested in hearing a little bit about that. It kind of sheds light on how much they're yearning for the gospel in that part of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they started a seminary class, and the first class, we weren't the teachers at this time, but we attended just to kind of help, because the teacher, it wasn't really an assigned teacher, but the guy who was going to teach the lesson that day from the ward, he couldn't really speak English all that well, so we just kind of went there just as translators, really. But we went there that one day, and then the next week we went there again to do the same thing, and they told us that we were the teachers. So kind of got pushed into that. But yeah, the seminary class, it was great. We started off our first class, I believe we had 6 people, 4 members and 2 non-members that were part of it. And by our last class, before all this Corona stuff stopped the schools there, I believe we had over 20. And most of them weren't members. They just heard that what we were doing there was good. And they even had a big church part of that. Even the principal was even the pastor of that church. And he even allowed some of his students to come over and hear our message, because he knows a little bit about the gospel, and he would be baptized, but he was a pastor, and it was his job, really, other than principal. But yeah, I didn't get too far into that story, but it's okay. But yeah, and it really worked out, and like I said, it was very fruitful. And if we had more time, we definitely could have been a lot more productive in getting those non-members baptized, because I bet at the end, out of the over 20 kids that were there, I lost count, but I'm pretty sure more than half of them weren't even members. So it was great seeing that, how they just felt the Spirit in our lessons, and they liked it more than their past lessons in a different church there. And so they came over to listen to us, and I thought that was really cool.
That's pretty powerful how the truthfulness of it appeals to those that are looking for, and the ways in which the gathering is happening. That's pretty inspiring. All right, how's the church like in Kenya? What was the ward like? I mean, were you part of a stake? Was it a branch, a district, ward, stake? What was that like?
Yeah. So I was over a branch. I was only over the Kabiria branch, but the Kabiria branch and the Ruruta ward, they meet in the same building. They're working on trying to build a building in Kabiria for the Kabiria branch, but they want to wait till it's a ward and not a branch to do that. And we were actually working really close towards that. They had enough priesthood holders, enough members, they had everything. All they needed was tithing, and we were going to start working on tithing with the members right when we left. So it could have been very but yeah, so we were in the Kabiria branch in the, I think it was the northern Nairobi stake. So in Nairobi there's two stakes, the southern and the northern stake. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And so yeah, I was in a stake. It was a pretty big stake because they couldn't have that many stakes. Stake conference was huge, like biggest stake conference I've ever seen, even here. So there is a lot of members there. I'm not very sure the exact number, but just I didn't even realize how many members were there until stake conference, and I realized that was only half of Nairobi, not even Kenya. So I was only in one area. Like I said, I was only there for 2 months, but from what I saw, the church is growing there very fast. And I mean, people are loving it. I mean, they're getting more and more. I mean, that's why there's a temple being built there. I mean, when the temple was announced, they probably only had like 2/3 of the members that they have now. And so it was great. It was great to see how powerful the church was, even in a small country like that, in a small area of the world.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks for that. Why don't we finish then just by bearing your testimony, and then when you're done with that, we'll go ahead and conclude it, and you just text me the video file, and I'll send that on to the state presidency. So just go ahead and bear your testimony. Okay,
sounds good. Well, I'd like to bear my testimony that I absolutely, without a doubt, know that this church is true. I knew it was true before I left on my mission, or I wouldn't have gone. But just the experiences that I saw, and the things that I learned, and the things I learned about myself and the gospel, and the feelings that I felt each and every day in my lessons, in my teaching, it was so powerful that there's no doubt in my mind at all that this church is true, that Joseph Smith was a prophet, that he restored this gospel to the earth, that it is Christ's gospel, and that we do have a prophet and 12 apostles just like Jesus Christ did. I mean, it all just makes sense, and I have fallen in love with this gospel and will never live anything else but this gospel, because I love it. And I do say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Hey, thank you, Elder Peck. That was really inspiring. I had no clue the amount of good work that was going on in that part of the world. Really enjoyed hearing you talk about the members' hunger, your experience with the seminary class, how many baptisms you had just in a couple of months, and the growth that's going on in Kenya. And I hope that we get this COVID situation cleared up in the next few months. And it is my most sincere hope that here in a few more months you get to fly back and continue on with the good work you've been doing there.
Yep, me too.
All right, hey, Thank you very much for your time, and just text me that file, and I will send it on. Okay, sir?
Okay, sounds good.